So let's talk about data binding. Data binding is one of the main features of XAML, and it's about connecting the user interface to the business logic. And I'll mention this in the next lecture in more detail. Let's right now just talk about the perks of using data binding. So the first one is consistency. The second one, performance. The third one, easier to maintain code. And the last one, immediate UI design. No running needed. And these are just 4 very important perks of using data binding. Data binding is consistent because it allows you to create several bindings, several bounds to different parts of the UI with the same class. Its performance is outstanding compared to writing many lines of code. And this is linked to the third one, easier to maintain code. Because you code less, you have less lines of code to maintain. So it's easier for you to understand where errors are happening or where the performance is not being as good as it should be. It's just easier for you to make your code run better. Immediate UI design, no running needed, goes in relation mainly with collections. And we'll talk about this in the coming lectures. But let's just think about us as developers or you as a developer when you talk with a designer. It's hard for a designer to understand code, to understand how to change things. But if you as a developer think about the designer and create some data binding, the designer can actually see without having to run the application over and over again every changes that he is doing or she is doing immediately applied in Visual Studio or even Blend. So it's a very good thing, especially if you're working with teams, to do some data binding, especially for the designers to have a better, to do better their work, to make it easier, to make it faster, more efficient, without the need to run over and over again the application every time they change something. With data binding, especially with collections, and we'll see it in the third lecture of this chapter, especially with collections, data binding is very important. Those are some of the perks of using data binding. Believe me, there are way more.